I really like mini PCs. I like the concept of mini PCs. I wouldn't want one as my main desktop, but like for my home theater PC, for example, I've always thought it would be perfect. But they are kind of pricey. You know, Ace Magic makes a few that are super retro inspired. I think they look awesome. This one kind of looks like a cross between an 80s Walkman and an NES, but they actually make one that just straight up tries to look like an NES. I think this one's a little bit higher end. The X3 is kind of their mid-range, but you can still get it with a Ryzen 7 and 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD on sale for like $519 US. It's actually not that bad, all things considered, with the price of memory and the price of SSDs right now. You know, even stuff like the Raspberry Pi 5, these have gone up in price, you know, over the last few years. You know, if you go all the way up to the 16 gig version, it's $425 Canadian for the board only. Now you're going to need a power supply for it, and realistically, you're probably going to want a heatsink and a fan. So keep that in mind. Also, this doesn't come with any storage, right? Like you would have to buy, you know, if you were trying to match this, you want to buy like a 256 gig or a 512 gig micro SD card. But, you know, keep in mind it needs to be fast enough. You would want one that's reliable too. So like a SanDisk Ultra, for example, is what they include. And if you get it with a 128 gig in the case with the fan, it looks like, yeah, $560. So I thought, what about used? There's a lot of off-lease business machines out there. It's going to be mostly HP, Lenovo, and Dell. I like Lenovo, so I'll just type in Lenovo here. And, you know, the first one we see, $200. The next one we see is $90. And, you know, this guy here, let's see, did he put the specs? He must have put the specs in a picture, right? No specs. Gonna make me look this up. Yeah, so this one's a bit older. It has like an AMD A9 or an E2. The E2s are really terrible. Those are, I think, worse than like Intel Atom. And, you know, even the A9 probably get smoked by an equivalent Core i3 of its generation, which off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that would be somewhere between like 4th and 6th generation i3. But yeah, it's a dual core processor, and it says up to 8 gigs of RAM. So assume that this thing has like 4 or 8 gigs of RAM. I mean, it's $90, so what do you expect? One thing you got to watch with these kind of like business ultra small form factor, well, even really just all the kind of business SFF desktops in general, is that a lot of them don't have HDMI on the back. So you can see this one has like 2 display ports. Not a huge deal. Obviously, you can get a display port to HDMI dongle or a display port to HDMI cable relatively cheaply. Just keep that in mind. And that is one you know, more thing that can sometimes they can be a little flaky. They will have limitations, like if you're trying to do 4K 60, you would need to make sure that your DisplayPort to HDMI adapter or cable can handle that. This $200 one, honestly, this one caught my eye. It's a little bit newer. It's got USB Type-C on the front. It actually has HDMI on the back, surprisingly. It's got 2 display ports and an HDMI. But this one is a 9th gen, so Core i5-9500T. But this has got 16 gigs of RAM and a 256 gigabyte SSD for $200. And it looks to be in really good condition. Curious about this CPU. Let's see if we can find some more specs directly on the Intel website here. So the CPU came out in 2019, I believe. Yeah, second quarter 2019. It is a 6-core processor, 6 threads, so no hyper-threading, and up to 3.7 gigahertz, up to 35 watts. The graphics in it are the Intel UHD 630, and it says 4K support, yes, 60 hertz, but the HDMI cannot. Now, this is a weird like 4096 by 2304. That's kind of strange. They don't just show regular 4K here, which would be 3840 by 2160. So at 2160p, maybe it can do 30 hertz. You would think they would show that. But it can only do 4K 60 hertz over DisplayPort. So again, maybe with a good DisplayPort to HDMI 2.0 adapter, you could get 4K 60 off this thing. I'm not too sure if I'm going to bother trying that. And the reason I'm saying bother trying that is because I think I'm going to buy this and just to test it and just to have fun with it. Maybe I'll put Linux on it. But again, this comes with a 256 gigabyte SSD, so factoring that in for $200 compared to even if we were to spend, this is a little steep. Maybe you can find your own 256 gigabyte micro SD card for that price and source like the cheapest case with the fan. But I think realistically, you're still looking at, like, again, if you want 16 gigs of RAM, you're still looking at like $500 by the time you get at least a 128 gig or a 256 gig micro SD card of decent quality, and power supply and case with the fan. I think these still run off 5 volts, 2.4 amps. I'm not too sure if they've like updated them to use like power delivery or anything like that. But assuming that these still run off like 12 watts, you got to keep that in mind. This CPU, it's a quad core, 2.4 gigahertz quad core. But it's got to be, well under 10 watts, obviously, that CPU uses if the whole thing can run off like 12 watts. And it's hard to compare ARM. This would be like RISC, compared to, x86. But, again, this is 6 cores up to 3.7 gigahertz. So I'm pretty certain you're going to have a fair bit better performance out of something like this. Granted, this is used versus new, and the Raspberry Pi still has its place if you're using it as like a NAS or a router / firewall. It's again running off 12 watts. It's something that's maybe just going to sit in a closet or by your modem or router plugged in all the time. Kind of a different use case than, again, I'm buying this for like a home theater PC / you might use it for like light kind of daily use, just web browsing, maybe Office, that kind of stuff, which you could do on here. But again, I think this is going to perform a fair bit better at a fraction of the cost. So yeah, I think I'm going to message this guy, and I think I'm going to buy this, and we're going to just check it out, play with it, run some emulators on it, see how well this CPU with the integrated Intel graphics, what emulators it can run up to. In the context that, this is $200 Canadian. So I think $200 Canadian is roughly $150 US. I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, like $150 compared to $520, because this is US, right? Versus this $500 Canadian again. So yeah. I mean, it's still, we can just keep that Canadian versus Canadian because it's simple. It'd be like roughly $500 versus, $200. And there's going to be tax on this because it's new. So either way, you're kind of more in that $550 range, versus like $200 again, versus this is $520 US, which would be more like $700 off the top of my head, more like $700. So again, this is a fraction of the price, and I'm just curious what something like this could do. Again, I have a home theater PC with a Ryzen 5 5600G in it. It's got 16 gigs of RAM, and it's a micro ATX build, so it's a micro ATX tower. It's fairly big compared to something like this. So yeah, I think I'm going to buy this, and I will be back once I've got it. And there it is. And there's the power adapter for it. It's an official Lenovo 65-watt power adapter with the big rectangle. Same one my ThinkPad T440 uses, actually. And this thing's in very good condition. In fact, it still has the clear plastic peel on this red bit. On the front, we got a USB-A and a USB-C port. They're both super speed, despite the fact it's not blue. Got headphone and microphone jack on the front. It looks like that one is probably a combo jack. Yeah, that one's a combo jack, so it can do headphone and microphone. And then there's a separate microphone jack, oddly enough. On the back, this thing's got the power input there, one display port, and then a second display port up there. We've got 4 USB ports on the back. Looks like 2 of them are USB 3. This time they're color-coded blue. And 2 of them are probably just USB 2. And we got the HDMI port on the back. Like I said, these little business think centers don't always have HDMI on them. So that's pretty cool to see. Got Ethernet and we got Wi-Fi. This little piece right here is a separate piece that can come out. And you can swap that display port out if you needed like VGA or maybe like another HDMI port. It's like a little module that plugs into the board, if I recall correctly. On the bottom, we got the rubber feet. Again, it's in very good condition. Top, again, very good condition. To open these things up, there's 1 screw in the back. I might replace that with a thumb screw, so I don't need a screwdriver to open it. But once you get that 1 screw out, the top will slide forward and off. And then once you have the top off, the bottom will slide forward and off. So the top holds the bottom off. And there you go. You can see the CPU cooler fan, an empty 2.5 inch SATA bay. And on the bottom, we've got 2 RAM slots. Again, this has 16 gigs of RAM, so there's going to be 2 8s. And the Western Digital 256 gigabytes M.2, that is an NVMe drive. So not bad. $200 Canadian I paid for this, and it's in very good condition. I did try to offer him $160 because, look, hey, of course, I got to try. But he was like, nah, my price is firm. And honestly, $200 is still pretty fair. Again, especially in the condition that this is in. I still think if you were patient and you took your time and looked around and maybe tried to haggle with other people, you could probably get these even cheaper. But I think $200 is pretty fair. $200 Canadian is under $150 US. I think it's about $142 or $143. So again, very fair price for it. But I think if you really looked around, you could probably get an even better deal on one of these. And, you know, maybe it's not in as good of condition, and you could use that to, you know, help bring the price down. So you can see here, that's where that display port is located. And like I said, that's a separate module. So you take that out, you can replace it with one with a VGA port or an HDMI port. Super easy to get into these. Everything just kind of quick releases out. So that's your 2.5 inch SATA hard drive bay. Your fan even clips out. Okay. And underneath the fan is the heatsink. There's only 3 screws holding the heatsink down. It's very easy to remove. I've already done it, and I redid the thermal paste on here just because this machine is about 6 or 7 years old, just based on the CPU, that 9th generation Core i5. And so I don't know if the thermal paste has ever been changed or if it's the original thermal paste. So first thing I did was redid the thermal paste. Other than that, the fan was really clean. There was very little dust, even in the heatsink fins themselves underneath the fan. Very little dust in this thing. So, and again, this just snaps on. This just snaps on. And then again, in the bottom, you got pretty quick access to your SSD and your RAM. It looks like some similar models would have had a second M.2 slot here. You can actually see where they would have soldered a second connector on, and it's got the hole there to hold the M.2 down. So some of these might have 2 M.2 slots, maybe just how they're you know, optioned out. If this one was the higher end with like a Core i7 instead of a Core i5, maybe yours will have 2 M.2 slots. But honestly, for the size of it, the fact it's got 2 RAM slots, it's got an M.2 slot, replaceable M.2, and it's got the 2.5-inch SATA. So if you want to throw, if you have a larger SATA SSD or even a hard drive just to store movies on or something, if this is like a home theater PC, you could throw a 5 terabyte, 2.5-inch SATA hard drive in there and have 5 terabytes worth of movies on this thing. So yeah, very cool. And again, very clean inside. So let's hook it up and test it out. All right, don't mind the mess. I got this thing kind of temporarily hooked up. Just going to turn it on there, give you an idea of the boot up time. So we got a little Lenovo splash screen there as it's loading Pop OS. And we're going to do this old school. I'm just going to point the camera at the screen. There's a reason for that we'll get into. All right. So I'm just going to log in here. And there we go. This is Pop OS. Now, as far as a home theater PC goes, there is a couple things that I need it to do. I want it to be good at playing back YouTube, ideally at 4K. Netflix, again, ideally at 4K. I want it to be able to play 4K Blu-ray rips, and I want it to run emulators fairly well. Okay, so we're going to take a look at all that, but before we get started, I'm just going to check out display settings. We're running at 1440p, that's the resolution of this monitor, 2560 by 1440. It's partially why we're doing it this way, where we're just going to look at the camera, because I don't have anything that can capture 1440p. We are plugged in with DisplayPort, so with our refresh rate, we can go up to 165 Hertz. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to leave it at 60. All right. I'm going to bring up the Cosmic settings, and we are going to go to System and About. And here we can see it's the Lenovo, 16 gigs of RAM, Core i5 9500T with the Intel integrated UHD 630 graphics and the 256 gigabyte SSD. Okay, so we've got Firefox on here and we have Google Chrome on here. If I go to YouTube and try and play a 4K video or even 1080p 60, in fact, I've been using this video a lot because it's 4K 60. So this video, even at 1080p 60, is dropping frames. Okay, and if we go full screen, doesn't make any difference. Still dropping frames. So that kind of sucks, right? I tried a H.265 plugin. Didn't really make a difference, which is strange, because on my ThinkPad T440, that made a huge difference. That thing with a 4th Gen i5 was able to play back 1080p 60 with very little dropped frames, less than this after that. So not sure what's up with that, but video performance in Firefox is not great. Now, if we open up Chrome and go to YouTube, go to History. Okay, here it is, same video. And we'll start with 1080p 60. Stats for nerds. We are not dropping frames. Okay, I'm going to go up to 4K 60. We are not dropping any frames at 4K 60. Current 4K 60, not dropping any frames. This is so impressive. So what's the problem? Well, watch this. I'm going to hit full screen, and we immediately get kicked out of full screen mode. Okay? I'm going to bring up Netflix. And just going to click on something to play here. it's playing fine. I hit full screen. And a second later, we get booted out of full screen. This is a known issue with the latest version of Pop! OS and the Cosmic Desktop and Chrome. This was not an issue on the previous version of Pop! OS. It's only become an issue with the latest version of Pop! OS. So hopefully this is something that they can fix. But these are just some of the weird little issues that you're going to have. I've tried installing Chromium. The exact same thing happens. I looked into it. Again, it's a common issue. Everyone's aware of it. Brave browser does the same thing. It seems that any Chromium-based browser has this issue. Firefox does not, but the performance is much worse. So it's not exactly a green check mark, but it's not a red X either. We are looking at, I guess, a yellow question mark as to whether 4K YouTube video is going to be on the table. Now, again, if we were running Windows on this thing, this wouldn't be an issue. This is only an issue, again, with the latest version of Pop! OS running the Cosmic Desktop. All right. So let's take a look at, well, before we do emulators, I'm going to show you this UZ Doom. This is one of these like OpenGL Doom port. You can, runs the Doom engine. It should show, there we go. That was unusually slow. I have no idea why that took that long to load up. We got the Doom shareware WAD here, so I'm just going to hit play game. And yes, this is just Doom, but this is running at 1440p, and it looks and plays super awesome. So yeah, this was just a quick download. It was in the Cosmic Store, and again, this is just the shareware, the free shareware Doom WAD. So for something that's free and you can download in a minute, you can have some fun here, okay? But again, it's just Doom, so Doom runs on everything. But not necessarily at 1440p. It looks very sharp, right? So, but now we'll get into emulation, and we'll start with just RetroArch. So I'm going to go to Sonic the Hedgehog. And I'm going to turn on shaders. They're off for a reason. I'll show you in a second. This is my favorite consumer CRT shader, Vulkan. And it looks awesome. Looks awesome, runs perfectly smooth. I mean, I guess no one should be surprised. But again, I really love this Vulkan consumer CRT shader. So that's what we're looking at there. And actually, we'll go back in. I'm going to show you an N64 game running. And the reason I had the shaders off is because the Vulkan shaders don't work with the N64 emulators. I believe the N64 emulators force OpenGL. So maybe if we were using an OpenGL shader, it might work, but not too sure. But there's Pilot Wing 64. It's running at full speed. I don't think anyone would be surprised about that, okay? So we'll step it up to PSP. I've only got one PSP game installed, and it is Ridge Racer. And I've actually never played Ridge Racer for the PSP until just now, testing it here. And yeah, I gotta say, I certainly remember when this game came out, my friend knew a guy that imported a PSP from Japan the second it came out. So he got a PSP before it was launched over here. And of course, he had this game, as most people did at launch. And, you know, seeing a game with this level of graphics on a handheld, it was pretty mind-blowing at the time. But like I said, I've never played this before. This is at a 2x internal resolution scale. So it looks pretty good. I mean, for a PSP game blown up on a 27-inch monitor, This looks awesome and seems to run great. So yeah, this looks like fun. I will definitely have to play this game a little bit more. All right, so anyways, we'll get out of there. Exit. And we'll move up to PS2. PS2, I've only got one game installed here. It's Ratchet and Clank, so we'll check this out. And I'm using a Super Nintendo controller, by the way, which is a pretty funny way to play a PS2 game like this. If it's working, why not skip this video? There we go. Skip. Let's go. Come on. In a hurry. Skip. Skip. All right. So this is PS2 at a 2x internal resolution scale. I wouldn't say it's perfect. I think there's a little bit of stutter. Some that might go away as you play, of course. But for the most part, I would say this is definitely playable. Some easier to emulate PS2 games probably run perfectly fine at 2x scale. But I guess worst case, if you had to, you could go down to a 1x native scale. But honestly, no, this is pretty good. Really, not bad. Okay, so let's get out of there. And last but not least, we're going to look at Dolphin. And I'm just going to show you the graphics settings. We're Vulkan, and we are at a 3x native scale. This is 1080p. Okay, the only GameCube game I have downloaded is Mario Kart Double Dash. Got a frame rate counter in the top right, so we can watch that as we go here. I thought my controller was set up, but it doesn't seem to be. I guess I'm using keyboard here. Again, this is 3x internal resolution scale, 1080p. This looks so good. These bright, colorful, cartoony graphics. At this resolution, this looks absolutely amazing. And we are pretty much running at a locked 60 FPS, which is super impressive. Honestly, this is so impressive. 3x integer scale, 1080p on GameCube. And that's where we're going to leave it. Because really, all it comes down to is that there's thousands and thousands of games you can play on this thing. So my home theater PC is, arguably it's a bit better performance-wise. The Ryzen 5 5600G. That thing is like 6 cores, 12 threads, and it's up in the 4 point something gigahertz range. It's also got built-in, Radeon Vega graphics, which are definitely better than the Intel HD 630. But it's also huge. It's like 20 times the size. Even though it's a micro ATX, mini tower, it's still like 20 times the size. And I was just curious if I had to build that with current pricing right now. I think the CPU is Canadian pricing, but the CPU is about $180. 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM's like $150. A 256 gigabyte M.2 SSD from a decent brand like Kingston or WD Blue. It's about $80. Motherboard's about $120. And then, even on the low side, I kind of estimated like a case, like a $60 case and a $60 power supply. And that puts us at like $650. And at that point, does the home theater PC even make sense? Yes, it's bigger, and that's good if you do want to add, like if you were planning on adding a graphics card down the road. But assuming that you're not going to, I mean, $630 Canadian right now, looks like it's on sale, can get you this little Ace Magic with a Ryzen 7 H255. And I'm not too familiar with that CPU. I mean, again, it is a mobile CPU. But it's, 8 cores, 16 threads, Zen 4, up to 4.9 gigahertz. And that's going to have probably RDNA. Is that RDNA 2 or RDNA 3 based graphics in it? RDNA 3 based graphics. So, it is a mobile CPU. It's hard to compare with a desktop CPU. So even though it's 8 cores and the 5600G is like 6 cores, even though on paper it has a higher boost clock, it might not be that much faster, but I would say definitely the RDNA 3 graphics that are in this are definitely faster than the Vega graphics, this pre-RDNA 1 that's in the 5600G. So this thing, realistically, it's going to perform better at a 20th of the size, and it's, roughly the same price just to buy this than it would be just to buy the parts to build yourself my 5600G home theater PC. So again, if you don't plan on like adding a graphics card or something where you need the bigger size, this mini PC to me would make a lot more sense, especially with the pricing right now. Again, to buy the parts to build my home theater PC would cost as much, if not more. And again, it's a 20th of the size. So, yeah, parts are very expensive right now, and these sale prices are actually pretty reasonable. By the way, this video is not, I just realized, been plugging these Ace Magic. I only started with Ace Magic because I really like the way those retro ones look. Something like this, there's lots of other brands that make like similar mini PCs. I'm just saying that like this price is pretty reasonable given the price of parts, and that normally you'd think you would pay more for the mini PC, but you're really not. As for my guy, my guy versus this, which I bought already, he still has the add up, oddly enough. So he either has forgot to take it down since I bought this off him, or he's got multiple of them, which is possible. He might work at a school board or an office, and he might have got a whole bunch of these. I'm not sure. But this is after the fact. I have bought this. Comparing it to this, obviously, this is a lot more performance. Again, this has less performance than my 5600G, and this has more performance than my 5600G. But other than the issue in Chrome, which is more of an issue with the Pop! OS thing, this was capable of playing 4K video, and it did handle up to GameCube at 3x 1080p. It will handle Wii. It might handle some Wii U, but I'm not sure. I won't go there. We'll just say this thing can handle up to GameCube, up to Wii, no problem. So, like I said, thousands of games you can play on this thing, from 8-bit, 16-bit, all the way up. PSP, PS2, GameCube, Wii. That's pretty cool. For $200, compared to this thing, which is 3 times the price, over 3 times the price, plus tax on a new thing, right? This can be like $670, $680 by the time you get tax, and I don't know if the shipping's free to Canada. So this thing could be like $700. I don't know, but it's at least a third the price, of this, or I should say, it's 3 times the price of this. Is it 3 times more powerful? I don't know. Maybe it might be, but again, compared to my home theater PC, which it's still a third the price of. It's almost as powerful as that. Again, not quite. And at what point we're going to draw straws, I don't know. They're both 16 gigs of DDR4. They're both 256 gig SSD. They're both 6-core processor. The 5600G is a little bit newer. It's 6 cores, 12 threads. It's higher clock speeds. I was surprised that this had a socketed CPU. I was not expecting that, so you can replace the CPU on this, which is insane. But again, it's a third the price of this, or a third the price, less than a third of the price of this, and less than a third of the price of if I was just to build my home theater PC again. If this can do everything my home theater PC can do for me, that's pretty awesome. And that's really the whole point of this video, is what can a $200 Canadian, it was about $142, $143 US. For the sake of the video, I'm going to call it $140. You know it. What can a $140 mini PC do for you? For me, this could replace my home theater PC, and it would do everything I need it to do. And it's super small. These are just really cool. And in excellent condition, you can pick these up very, very easily. I think these are awesome. And that is the whole point of the video. So that's the end. See you guys later.